laughing lady?
It's okay now, we can talk.
Can talk?
Yeah.
What happens? Who shuts them up?
I don't know. It was very quiet in the studio. My next guest just arrived here in town to appear in the new Harold Pinter play, Old Times, and every time a Harold Pinter play comes along, critics are at each other's throats saying it doesn't, arguing over what it means and so on. But it's a pleasure. Robert Shaw's acting always has a kind of mysterious, dangerous, wonderful quality about it. You may have seen him as Henry VIII in the movie about The Man for All Seasons, and or maybe trying to annihilate James Bond and From Russia with Love, and a lot of other films. And again, a man who's quite thrilling to see on the stage. He's also the author of novels and plays. He does a lot of things very well. His play Man in the Glass Booth ran on Broadway for quite a long time. Will you welcome, please, Mr. Robert Shaw. Florence try to hurt you in any way, or?
No, I notice everybody's been very funny. I can't be funny tonight because I haven't slept for 5 days.
Oh.
Now, when a man says, I haven't slept for 5 days, if I hadn't slept for 5 days, I wouldn't be able to touch my nose with my finger or any of those tests they give you to see if you're sober. Are you serious?
Yeah, and I'm going to smoke because I didn't smoke for 7 years. It's true.
No, wait. You're not going to have this first cigarette in 7 years.
No, but I just did a movie in which the man chain smokes, and in the play I'm in, the man chain smokes, and so I stopped for 7 years. I was just interested in what Jack was saying. Yeah. So I'm now, you said 2 packs a day, it's 4 after 7 years. Oh. Also, you were saying about your hair. I just did this movie. This is 6 weeks growth. I was shaved completely right round there. Probably in the lights you can pick it out. There's a circle, so, you know.
Yeah, but you knew it was going to grow back. It's a big difference.
I wanted to provide you with the feed because I know how bad it is to try and plug a picture. And you look very good, you know, with it back there. Anyway.
Yeah. But they shaved your head. Now,
yes.
Is it or is it not true, this story? You'd know.
Well, I can prove it.
No, I mean that Alec Guinness, they say, had his head shaved for a role some years back, and it never did come back.
Well, the only ironic thing about it is that the director, Richard Attenborough, of this film I've been making about Churchill, did a picture called Rillington Place, the famous murderer,
10
Christie.
Rillington Place, yeah.
He refused to have his hair shaved under his doctor's orders. So I had a little meeting with him one day in Madrid, and he said, how do you feel about having your head shaved? And I said, well, I mean, if it's necessary for the role, I'll do it. Little did I know how I was being conned into that by the very same person who did not have his head shaved, but now, you see, he was the director.
So Attenborough would shave a man's head without shaving his own?
That's right. That's the way they are.
But it's coming back nicely. Say, I got to ask you something. I saw you on stage, I've mentioned this before, but I never asked you this question. I saw you in the other Pinter play with Donald Pleasance.
Yes, The Caretaker.
The Caretaker, yeah. And you had this scene that just gave the audience goose pimples. It was kind of a monologue, and you did it face front to the audience. And it seemed like you had a lobotomy, a brain operation. At least you played it that way, and there was some line in it about...
the pincers, it says the word pincers.
But
in fact, he had electric shock treatment. He didn't have a lobotomy. There's a slight confusion there. But anyway...
How do you play the difference between a lobotomy and a...
Straight out front.
Yeah.
Straight out front, and you just... the interesting technical thing about that, actually, because when we were making the film, which we made for the large sum of £18,000, I can't think what that is in dollars, it ain't too much, and none of us got any money. I have 15% of the gross.
Which is
and we have never received anything. Well, 15% of the gross, you never get a percentage of the gross, do you, Jack? Never.
Yeah.
And to this day, that film is still in the red. We have to send them money here in America for the publicity, for the advertising.
Yeah. And yet everybody who has seen it has said, you've got to see this film.
But that's the intelligent minority.
Oh.
That's what...
do you know...
Sorry.
Do you know anyone who's...
That's not the unseen majority, or whatever you call it here, the silent majority. It ain't. The only people I ever get appreciated by is the articulate minority.
Oh, is
if that
that
makes
so?
sense.
Is
yeah.
that so? Do you know anybody who's had a lobotomy ever?
Oh, I know many.
It's kind of passé, isn't it? Removing a piece of the brain.
Yeah, well, it
Do you
used to be
know?
a terrible experiment. Doctors used to like to do that. They don't do it too often. I mean, you know, medical history is pretty horrific, isn't it? They pass through phases when they give you lobotomies or too many pills or this or that because they don't know too much about it, I suppose. But they're advancing.
I know a story of a man who was a writer. A man on my staff knows him, and he had terrible violent attacks. And I mean, he became violent. And this was some years back, and he got a doctor to give him a lobotomy, but the doctor warned that he might lose his skill as a writer. And he had the operation, and he did lose his skill as a writer, but not
well,
the violent attacks. So he lost the one and not the other.
Oh, I know that fellow well, yeah, and there's plenty of them about. And actually, myself, to be honest, I believe that writers, artists, anybody like that should stick with their neuroses because I think it's part of their drive, roughly speaking. I know any psychiatrist would hate to, hear that, but personally, my complexes, my guilt, my violence, everything like that, are just what, makes me any good at all.
But
So-
Jack's been through analysis, and he's still good.
Through, don't say, when you say through analysis, it means like I finished or completed. You never complete it.
Oh.
They see to that. I'm beginning. And I'm beginning, and I agree. Not that so much. If your neuroses do not prevent you from
Functioning.
expressing how you feel and your doubts, as I believe Philip Roth was able to do in Portnoy's Complaint, as I believe that whatever Bob has done, I did Man in the Glass Booth, and I had the greatest time of my life, that if his neuroses have allowed him also to function, you can't do better than that. That's the best you can do. Function. If you're not functioning, then maybe you can go and do analysis.
That's
I
right.
believe that.
But if your arm became paralyzed for reasons that they told you were psychic,
Well, I mean, the difference between physical disease and mental disease is a hair's breadth, isn't it? And sometimes it's all mixed up in it. We can't, as amateurs or whatever you call, really talk very seriously about that. But very often you cannot tell which is which. Sometimes, in fact, people seem to be mentally ill. They're not at all. They're physically ill. If the doctor can find that out, and vice versa.
is there a word somatopsychic that's the opposite of psychosomatic?
Yes, you just made it.
Because it sounds like it should be.
There is.
Did you have to study syphilis to play the role that you're about to? Well, we'll get into that in a minute. You know what I'm talking about?
I'm an authority on it now.
You're probably wondering what we mean. Join us after this message from our local stations and we'll tell you.